Hello, my name is Jim Vajda from 7 Signal. I'm going to do a quick talk on Wi-Fi 6 in the wild. These are real-world observations about some of the features in Wi-Fi 6 and how well they, if they're working, how well they're working. I'm going to talk a little bit about 6 gigahertz too. Got a lot of things, leading with the conclusion here, as Keith has taught me. A lot of things to look at. We're only going to talk about 3, 1024 QAM, OFDMA, and 6 gigahertz. And they all work, and we've observed that. But we'll talk about some of the details for each of those. So starting with 1024 QAM, this is really interesting. So this is data from over 25 million samples from Wi-Fi clients running our Mobileye agent. So these are all samples from Wi-Fi 6 clients connected to Wi-Fi 6 access points. And when we're looking at the modulation in use, 2.4 gigahertz, there is some 1024 QAM and this is all uplink, okay? It's about a fifth of the time in 2.4 gigahertz, clients are using 1024 QAM. But what I found really interesting was in 5 gigahertz, almost half the time, clients are using 1024 QAM to transmit on the uplink. This is not the downlink, this is the uplink. So that was really interesting. Another point about this, the 5 gigahertz sample size was 96% of those 25 million samples. So at least, among our enterprise customers, when Wi-Fi 6 is in use, the clients are predominantly using 5 gigahertz, and then that might tell us that 2.4 gigahertz is mostly used on the fringes of coverage, just kind of like a last gasp kind of connection. So that's interesting. It actually makes me wonder, if half the time a client in 5 gigahertz is using 1024 QAM, what part of that time could it actually maybe even be able to go higher, up to MCS 12 and 13 in Wi-Fi 7? Some non-zero fraction, so we'll see. So, why is this? One of the reasons is that the AP receive sensitivity is through the roof with modern APs. If we look at some from Cisco, and this is true for other vendors, but I'm going to talk about Cisco because they publish big tables of the receive sensitivities of their APs. We can compare those to what the standard says the minimum receive sensitivity is. So just looking at minus 70 dBm, the bar was set by 802.11a in 1999, and that said, got to be able to do 16 QAM in terms of modulation. You need to be able to demodulate that at minus 70. And a decade later, Cisco released a 3502, which in lab testing, not exactly the real world, but in lab testing, could do 64 QAM with minus 70. A few years later, 3702 came out. It could do 256 QAM at minus 70. And according to Cisco's tests, the 9120 can actually do 1024 QAM. It can demodulate that at a signal level of minus 70 dBm. So that's way above the minimum requirements from the standard. Actually, the standard for MCS 10 says minus 54. So Cisco, in their testing, is beating that by 16 dB. So again, self-reported lab testing, but something's going on, right, that helps explain why clients are able to use that modulation in the uplink. Another way to look at this is the downlink RSSI. So this is not the same thing as AP receive sensitivity. but the downlink RSSI that clients are measuring when they're at or above the thresholds for 1024 QAM. MCS 10 is the first MCS that supports 1024 QAM. That's minus 58 is the average across all that sample that we looked at. So to put that in context, if your association edge is like neg 65, do some rough dB math, 6 dB in is going to be about half that range. That would be minus 59. It's just under half the range of the AP. Clients are able to, Wi-Fi 6 clients are able to transmit at 1024 QAM. So again, kind of beating expectations quite a bit. And when clients are at or above MCS 10, the average RSSI is even a lot higher than that in our customer networks that we looked at, minus 47 dBm. So again, maybe there's some headroom open for 4K QAM. So looking at OFDMA, this is really hard to kind of make judgments about using real world data. It's easy to find that it works. I mean, the APs are scheduling and OFDMA is happening. But like, is it making good decisions? Is it working well? And how do we judge it versus the alternatives? It's difficult to know. But one of the things that I think is a clear use case, something we should be able to observe, is improved VoIP MOS scores in congested channels. That should be something that OFDMA should really be able to help us out with. And when we go and look for these kind of situations, it's kind of a mixed bag. A lot of examples look like this. So these are all measurements from a Sapphire sensor taken over the same period. Channel utilization on the far left, and you can see it's spiking, it's relatively high. The Sapphire can see when OFDMA is happening in the uplink and downlink. It's seen some in the downlink. There may be more that happened when we were off channel. But the MOS score from the Sapphire sensor, which has Wi-Fi 6 capabilities, it's tagging the traffic appropriately and so forth. It's not great, it's kind of marginal. Hoped it would have been better. Maybe it would have been worse without OFDMA, but it's far from perfect. So still kind of a mixed bag, even though it is happening. And last thing, 6 gigahertz support. If we look across our global install base of Mobileye, 2% of the clients are Wi-Fi 6E clients. So kind of in line with what we've heard from other talks. And if we look across, again, all the connections from all the clients in Mobileye, you can see that the 6 gigahertz slice of the pie is vanishingly small. 1/100% of the time. We actually have a client operating in 6 gigahertz. Now, of course, this includes dual band clients as well, but this is a more broader view. And when we investigated this a little bit, obviously you have to have 6 gigahertz clients and APs for this to work, but there's a third factor that's kind of elusive, and you need those clients to decide to choose to operate in the 6 gigahertz band. And when clients have really healthy, high SNR 5 gigahertz connections, they don't have a big incentive to go up there. So that's impacting that as well. All right, so time's winding down. Come see us in the Apache Ballroom at 6:15 tonight.